What's good, bedtimes? It's RDL here, and today I'm gonna be talking about the original and the remake of this movie called Halloween. So starting off, we're gonna be talking about the original. On a Halloween night in 1963 in Haddonfield, Illinois, a 6-year-old little boy named Michael Myers stalked his older sister Judith and her boyfriend while they were making out. Their parents aren't home and she's supposed to be babysitting Michael, but she doesn't seem to care at all. They go upstairs to make out with each other and Michael goes back into the house through the back door. He turned on the kitchen light and opening drawer to grab a butcher knife. After Judith's boyfriend left, Michael went upstairs and found his clown mask on the floor. He picked it up and put it on his face. He entered Judith's bedroom, and when Judith turned around, Michael stabbed her in the chest multiple times and killed her. Michael went outside and saw that his parents had just returned. They removed his mask and they asked him what was going on, but Michael didn't say a word. We fast forward almost 15 years later on October 30th in 1978. On a stormy night, we get introduced to Dr. Loomis, who has been Michael's psychiatrist for all of his childhood. We also get introduced to a nurse named Marian Chambers, who is driving Dr. Loomis to Smith's Grove Sanitarium, where Michael has been committed for most of his life. When they arrive, they see a lot of patients wandering outside the sanitarium. Dr. Loomis went to investigate, and while he was investigating, Michael jumped onto the roof of Marian's car and tried to attack her. Marian got out of the car and Michael drove away with it. On the next day in Haddonfield, Illinois, we get introduced to a 17-year-old teenage girl named Laurie Strode who is walking to school. She runs into Tommy Doyle, who happens to be a little boy that she babysits a lot, and asks her a whole lot of questions. Laurie stops by the Myers house, which is now abandoned, and dropped off a key there because her father planned on selling it. Laurie was completely unaware that Michael was inside the house watching her, and Tommy told Laurie that some doubtful stuff happened at the Myers house a long time ago. Laurie tells Tommy that she has to go to school and he leaves. Laurie continues to walk to school while singing random song, and Michael is behind her watching. Dr. Loomis was upset that nobody listened to him about Michael and travels to Haddonfield to find him. Meanwhile, Laurie was in class, and when she looked out of a window, she noticed Michael sitting in his car watching her. Laurie answered a question from her teacher correctly, and when she looked out the window again, Michael was gone. Tommy gets taunted by the other kids at school about the boogeyman coming to get him. They make him fall and crush his pumpkin by landing chest first onto it. As the kids were running away, Michael stopped one of them from bumping into him and scared them all. Michael stalks Tommy, who is walking away from school. Meanwhile, Dr. Loomis uses a payphone and calls the police in Haddonfield to warn them about Michael. After hanging up, he discovered a red mechanic truck and found Michael's white robe. He immediately ran to get to Haddonfield, and while he was running away, we discovered that Michael killed the mechanic and stole his overalls. After school was over, Laurie, Linda, and Annie were walking and talking with each other. During their conversation, Laurie realized that she forgot her chemistry book, and Michael showed up in his car driving by. After Michael drove off, Laurie, Linda, and Annie talked about their plans for Halloween night. Laurie had to babysit Tommy Doyle. Annie had to babysit a little girl named Lindsay Wallace, and Linda had plans to make out with her boyfriend Bob. Linda makes it home and Laurie sees Michael stalking her and Annie from behind a bush. Danny goes to investigate and Michael was gone. Danny made her way home and Laurie ran into Danny's father, Lee Brackett, who is the sheriff of the Haddonfield Police Department. Laurie finally made it back home, and when she goes to her bedroom window to close it, she sees Michael staring at her from the backyard. Michael somehow disappeared from the backyard and Laurie quickly closed her bedroom window. Laurie gets a phone call and hears some noises from the other line and hangs up. The phone rang again and it turned out to be Annie, who wasn't able to talk at first due to having her mouth full from eating something. She called Laurie to tell her that she was gonna pick her up later at 6:30. Later on, we see Laurie holding a pumpkin while waiting for Annie to pick her up. Annie picked Laurie up and the two of them started smoking weed together. Meanwhile, Dr. Loomis went to the cemetery in Haddonfield and discovered that the tombstone of Michael's older sister, Judith, had turned up missing. While Laurie and Annie were talking, Michael showed up again, secretly following them. Danny runs into her father, Sheriff Brackett, and she and Laurie quickly put out the weed that they were smoking. Sheriff Brackett greets Annie and Laurie, and Annie asks him what happened. He told him that somebody broke into the hardware store and assumed that it was some kids that did it. He also told them that some Halloween masks, a robe, and a couple of knives were stolen. Also, how does he not smell the weed in the car? Weed in general has a strong ass smell that takes a minute to wear off. Either the weed that they were smoking was very weak or Sheriff Brackett had no sense of smell. Anyway, back to the recap. Danny and Laurie drove off just when Dr. Loomis showed up to talk to Sheriff Brackett about Michael. They were unaware that Michael drove past them and continued stalking Laurie and Annie. At nighttime, Laurie gets dropped off at Tommy's house and Annie went across the street to Lindsay's house. Michael got out of his car and started stalking Annie. Sheriff Brackett and Dr. Loomis went to the abandoned Myers house to investigate. They found a dead, unidentified animal that Michael ate, and the two of them went upstairs to check the rest of the house. Dr. Loomis explained to Sheriff Brackett the type of person that Michael Myers is, which I will play for you right here.
I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left. No reason, no conscience, no understanding, and even the most rudimentary sense of life or death, of good or evil, right or wrong. I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up, because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
After explaining to Sheriff Brackett, Dr. Loomis planned to stay in the Myers house just in case Michael showed up again. He also told Sheriff Brackett to not notify the radio and television. Sheriff Brackett tells Dr. Loomis that he'll check on him in an hour. Meanwhile, Laurie is babysitting Tommy and she gets a phone call from Annie checking up on her. She also told Laurie that she got her a date with some guy at her school that she liked named Ben Tremer. Laurie gets embarrassed after finding out the news. Tommy looked out of the window and saw Michael standing across the street. He tried to show Laurie, but Michael disappeared. While Laurie and Annie were talking to each other on the phone, Annie accidentally spilled some butter all over her clothes. She tries to call for Lindsay, but she doesn't respond because she's busy watching the movie. Annie found a robe to wear and Michael dropped a hanging pot plant went and made some noise. Danny heard the noise, but she thought nothing of it. So Wallace's family dog tried to warn Annie about Michael, but it ended up getting strangled to death. While Laurie and Tommy were watching a movie, Tommy told Laurie that he believed that the boogeyman was going to get him, but Laurie promised that she won't let anything happen to him, and the two of them started making a jack-o'-lantern. Danny went to the laundry room to clean her clothes, and Michael locked her inside. Danny tries to call for Lindsay, but she's unable to hear her. Danny tries to squeeze herself through the window, but she ends up getting stuck. Lindsay answered the house phone, and a guy named Paul, who is Annie's boyfriend, told her to tell Annie that he called. Lindsay hung up and went to the laundry room where Annie was at. She helped Annie get unstuck from the window and called Paul back. Annie planned on picking up Paul so they could make out with each other. Danny took Lindsay across the street to the storehouse. Danny made a deal with Laurie that if she watches Lindsay while she went to make out with Paul, she'll consider talking to Ben Tramer tomorrow morning. Laurie accepts the deal and Annie leaves. When Annie got in her car, Michael appeared from the back seat and killed her by slitting her throat. While Tommy and Lindsay were watching a movie, Tommy hid behind a curtain and tried to scare her, but while doing so, he looked out the window and saw Michael carrying Annie's body into the house. Tommy tried to warn Laurie once again, but Laurie didn't see anybody. Meanwhile, Dr. Loomis was outside the house waiting and noticed the same kids that were bullying Tommy earlier, attempting to do a dare at the Myers house. Dr. Loomis hid behind a bush and scared them off. Sheriff Brackett returned to Dr. Loomis and told him that nothing has happened so far. Linda and her boyfriend Bob showed up to the Wallace house where they planned to have their makeout session at for some reason. Linda and Bob looked for Annie and Lindsay, but they were nowhere to be found, and the two of them started kissing each other on the couch while Michael watched like a weirdo. Laurie finished making a jack-o'-lantern for both Tommy and Lindsay. Laurie looked out the window and noticed Bob's blue van parked outside the house and knew that Linda and Bob were over there getting busy. Laurie got a call from Linda, who was at the Wallace house, and asked her if Annie was around. Laurie told her that Annie went to go pick up Paul. After hanging up, Laurie told Bob that Lindsay was gone for tonight, and they went upstairs to smash. After they were finished, the two of them smoked some cigarettes, and Linda sent Bob to go bring her a beer. While Bob went into the kitchen to get Linda a beer, Michael appeared and pinned Bob against a wall. He lifted Bob up against the wall and impaled him through his chest with a butcher knife. Michael dressed up in a ghost costume and pretended to be Bob. Linda asked Michael where her beer was, and he gave her no answer. Linda gets frustrated and decides to call Laurie to ask where Annie and Paul were. Just when Laurie answered the house phone, Linda gets strangled by Michael with the phone cord. Laurie thinks it's Annie playing a joke on her, and when Linda finally dies, Laurie tries to get a response, but all she hears is complete silence and hangs up. Laurie looked out the window and noticed the lights turn on and off at the Wallace house. She tried to call again, but nobody answered the phone. Laurie checked upstairs to make sure Tommy and Lindsay were asleep. Dr. Loomis was still waiting at the Myers house and noticed Michael's car. He realized that Michael was nearby and went to look for him. Laurie went across the street to the Wallace house to investigate what was going on. Laurie knocked on the front door, calling for Linda, but got no answer. She noticed the back door was cracked open and went inside. Laurie tried to turn the lights on, but the power was off. Laurie once again thinks that it's a practical joke from Annie and slowly went upstairs to investigate investigate even more further. She noticed a light coming from the bedroom, and when she opened it, she found Danny's dead body and the missing tombstone from the cemetery. Laurie also found Bob and Linda's dead bodies. Laurie starts crying and Michael appears from the darkness. While Laurie wasn't looking, Michael sliced her shoulder and caused her to fall down the stairs. Laurie damaged her ankle from the fall and she sees Michael on the stairway looking at her. She immediately got up and tried to escape through the front door, but she couldn't get it open. Laurie ran to the kitchen and locked the door. She tried to escape through the back door, but it was blocked shut with a rake. Michael broke through the kitchen door and Laurie broke the glass so she could remove the rake that was blocking the back door and escape the Wallace house. Laurie ran outside limping and screaming for help, but nobody cared to help her. She ran back to the Doyle house and tried to look for the house keys, but she realized that they fell out of her pocket. Laurie threw a pot plant near the bedroom window where Tommy and Lindsay were sleeping and woke Tommy up. Tommy asked who it was and Laurie identified herself and told Tommy to hurry up and unlock the door. Michael was walking across the street and Laurie banged on the door yelling for Tommy to hurry. Tommy opened the door just in time for Laurie to come in and lock the door. Laurie tells Tommy to hurry up and go back upstairs. Laurie tried to call the police, but all of the power was cut off. She also realized that the window was open and that Michael was in the house somehow. Laurie hid behind the couch and grabbed a knitting needle, begging for him to stop. Michael appeared from behind the couch and attempted to stab Laurie, but he somehow missed her and Laurie stabbed Michael in the neck with the knitting needle. Michael took the knitting needle out of his neck and collapsed on the floor completely unconscious. Laurie grabbed Michael's butcher knife and saw Michael on the floor. She thinks that Michael is dead and rests for a minute. Dr. Loomis tells Sheriff Brackett that Michael was nearby. Dr. Loomis stays to watch the front of the houses while Sheriff Brackett checks the back of the houses. Laurie limped her way upstairs and checked on Tommy and Lindsay. Laurie told him that they were going to go for a walk, but Tommy was scared. Laurie told him that there was nothing to be scared of because she killed them. Tommy told Laurie that she can't kill the boogeyman, and he was completely right because Michael appeared upstairs. Tommy and Lindsay started screaming and Laurie put them in the bathroom and told them to lock the door. Laurie hid inside the bedroom closet and tied it shut to prevent Michael from opening the closet doors. Michael finds Laurie in the closet and tries to break in. He managed to turn the closet light on and Laurie grabbed a coat hanger. She bent it all the way straight and stabbed him in the eye with it. Michael was blinded and dropped his butcher knife. Laurie grabbed his butcher knife and stabbed him in the chest with it. Laurie got out of the closet once again, thinking that Michael was dead, and told Tommy and Lindsay to come out of the bathroom. She also told them to go to a neighbor's house and call the police. Tommy and Lindsay left the house screaming for help and caught Dr. Loomis's attention. Dr. Loomis went inside the Doyle house to investigate what was going on. Laurie was resting and was completely unaware that Michael was still alive. Michael tried to strangle Laurie to death and Dr. Loomis ran upstairs. Laurie managed to temporarily remove Michael's mask and Michael lets go of her so he can put it back on. Just when he put it back on, Dr. Loomis shot Michael 6 times and he fell off of a balcony. Laurie asked Dr. Loomis if that was the boogeyman and Dr. Loomis told her that it was. When he looks over the balcony, he discovers that Michael has disappeared. Dr. Loomis was completely shocked by this and realized that he was still out there somewhere. And that's the end of the movie. Now that I've covered the original, I'm now gonna be talking about the Rob Zombie remake from 2007. So starting off in this remake, it takes place in 1990 on the Halloween morning, we get a look at Michael Myers' childhood, and it's not a very happy one. Michael is 10 years old in the 5th grade. His older sister Judith is mean to him for no reason. His mother Deborah works as a stripper to make ends meet, and she has a boyfriend named Ronnie who is a very trash human being. He's verbally abusive towards Deborah and Michael. Deborah sent Judith to get Michael to come downstairs and eat some breakfast. While she was going upstairs, Ronnie made a sexual remark about Judith in front of Deborah with literally no shame, and Judith is 17, by the way.
Man, that bitch got herself a nice little dumper.
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
If I was Deborah, I would have took that frying pan and beat him with it. Also, why is she even with him in the first place? How did they even meet? What does she see in him? He treats you and your family like crap. Like, what is wrong with you, woman? Michael was in the bathroom washing the blood off of his hands after he killed his pet rat. Judith knocked on the door and told Michael to come downstairs and eat breakfast. At school, Michael gets into a little tussle with this kid named Wesley because he made fun of Michael's mother for being a stripper and made fun of Judith for her promiscuous behavior. He gets sent to the office for cussing out the principal. Deborah gets called to the school and she gets introduced to a child psychologist named Dr. Loomis to discuss Michael's concerning behavior. They found a dead cat and some pictures of some dead animals in Michael's backpack. Deborah is in denial of the whole thing because she thinks that Michael isn't capable of doing something like this, and boy does she end up being wrong. Michael snuck out of the school and got revenge on Wesley by brutally beating him to death with a log. Later on at night, Deborah goes to work at the strip club and Judith is supposed to be taking Michael trick-or-treating, but she had a makeout session with her boyfriend instead. Michael is sad and he goes trick-or-treating by himself. While Judith was making out with her boyfriend, he tried to scare her with a Captain Kirk mask, but it didn't work. Michael returned home from trick-or-treating and ate some candy. He grabbed some duct tape and tied up Ronnie, who was passed out drunk, in the chair. He also grabbed a butcher knife and slit his throat. Ronnie sees Michael watching him die just before he ended up dead. Judith's boyfriend went downstairs to eat a sandwich and Michael snuck up on him and beat him to death with a baseball bat. Michael found the Captain Kirk mask that Judith's boyfriend was wearing and put it on his small head. He went to Judith's room and she was listening to music and was completely unaware that Michael was behind her. Michael touched her legs and Judith turned around and saw Michael. She demanded him to answer her by slapping him in the face a couple of times, and Michael stabbed her in the stomach. Judith tried to get away from him, but Michael repeatedly stabbed her in the back and killed her. After killing Judith, he took off the Captain Kirk mask and told his baby sister happy Halloween. When Deborah returned home, she found Michael sitting on the porch holding his baby sister in complete silence. Deborah tried to get Michael to answer her, but Michael didn't say a word. The police arrested Michael and he ended up getting committed to Smith Grove's Sanitarium. 2 years later, Michael became more silent and hides his face underneath some masks that he makes during his free time because he's insecure about his looks. Deborah committed suicide by shooting herself in the head with her own gun after finally seeing for herself the kind of monster that Michael truly is. We fast forward 15 years later. Michael is now almost 30 years old and he's damn near almost 7 feet tall, looking like the long lost brother of the 1997 version of Kane. Dr. Loomis tells Michael that he will no longer be seeing him because there's nothing else that he can possibly do for him. So you're telling me it took him almost 2 decades just to realize that? I mean, I understand having hope and all that, but come on. Later on at night, the guards get a call to transport Michael to another sanitarium. While they were attempting to transport Michael, he broke out of his chains and killed everybody. A guard named Dismal, if I'm saying his name right, tried to convince Michael to get back into his cell, but Michael tricked him by pretending to surrender, and he tortured him by dumping his head in and out into a sink of water repeatedly. He finally killed him by throwing the TV onto his head and escaped. In the director's cut, a guard named Kendall and his cousin Noel took a female patient who hasn't even been committed for at least 2 days, and they started sexually harassing her. They took her to Michael's room where he was making another mask, and they started taunting him for no reason. They also started raping the female patient, and Michael chose to do nothing, and when they started touching his mask, Michael stood up and killed both of them and easily escaped. I'm pretty glad they went with the escape scene from the theater cut, because who is stupid enough to taunt someone who is almost 7 feet tall and looks like a caveman and is well known for murdering 3 people in one night as a kid? And I feel like Rob Zombie was trying to use this scene to possibly spread awareness on what be happening to female patients in mental hospitals, but it was done in poor taste. I also feel like he was trying to use this scene to show how far gone Michael has become, but it felt flat. It was originally supposed to be used in the theater cut, but it was changed after it was met with negative reception during screen testing. The escape scene in the theater cut did a way better job at showing us how terrifying and evil Michael has become over the years, especially with what he did to Dismal. Anyways, back to the recap. Dr. Loomis got a phone call and was told that Michael had escaped. Michael killed a truck driver so he could get some new clothes and travel to Haddonfield to find his little sister. And the next morning on Halloween, we finally get introduced to Laurie Strode, who is 17 years old in high school and lives with her adoptive parents named Cynthia and Mason. Mason gave Laurie an envelope and told her to drop it off at the now abandoned Myers house. She ran into a kid that she babysits regularly named Tommy. Michael returned to the Myers house and retrieved his iconic mask and butcher knife that he hid underneath the floorboards. Laurie dropped off the envelope and Michael smelled the envelope, and I think that might have been the reason why Michael was able to recognize Laurie, because I kind of always wonder how he knew it was her. I've seen this movie a few times and I've never caught this detail, so I might be kind of slow. And yes, he does have her baby picture, but that doesn't always help. Anyways, while at the school library, we get introduced to Annie and Linda, who are Laurie's friends, and the 3 of them are studying and talking about their plans for the night. Annie wants Laurie to babysit Lindsay while she went to make out with Paul as a favor. While they were talking, Laurie saw Michael staring at her and he disappeared. Dr. Loomis was upset that Michael escaped and traveled to Haddonfield to find him. Laurie, Linda, and Annie were walking home from school and saw Michael staring at them. When Annie told Michael that her father was the sheriff, he left. Danny got a ride home from Sheriff Brackett. Laurie and Linda split up and went home. Dr. Loomis went to the cemetery and discovered that the tombstone for one of Michael's dead relatives had gone missing and was replaced with a dead coyote. Later on at night, Linda and her boyfriend Bob went to the Myers house, where they constantly smashed in private, and they were completely unaware that Michael was on the balcony watching them. After they were finished with their makeout session, Linda sent Bob to get her another beer. While bringing Linda a beer, Michael came out of nowhere and killed Bob. There's 2 different ways that Bob dies in this movie. The first one is where he got nailed to a wall with a butcher knife, just like the original movie. And there's a second one where Michael stabbed Bob multiple times while he's inside the van. After killing Bob, Michael pretended to beat him by dressing up in his ghost costume. Linda asked Michael to hand over her beer, and Michael held it out for her. Linda gets frustrated and walks over to him fully naked and grabs the beer from Michael's hand. While Linda wasn't looking, Michael took off his ghost costume. Just when Linda opened the beer can, Michael strangled her to death with one hand. Michael carried Linda's naked dead body and walked in the hallway with it. Dr. Loomis bought himself a .357 Magnum revolver to use as protection against Michael. Laurie gets picked up by Annie to go over to the Doyle house to babysit Tommy. Soon after Laurie left, Michael came out of nowhere and killed Laurie's adopted parents. While Laurie was babysitting, she got a phone call from Annie that the Wallace parents are finally gone for the night, and she'll bring Lindsay over to the Doyle house in a few minutes. Meanwhile, Dr. Loomis talks to Sheriff Brackett about Michael. Danny took Lindsay to the Doyle house and she gets picked up by Paul. Meanwhile, Dr. Loomis told Sheriff Brackett that Michael returned to Haddonfield to track down his baby sister, Laurie. Sheriff Brackett tried to call the Strode residence, but he was unaware that both Cynthia and Mason were dead. While Annie was making out with Paul, Michael grabbed Paul and instantly killed him by stabbing him in his chest. Danny started screaming in terror and tried to escape from the Wallace house, but Michael instantly brought her back inside. Danny broke free of Michael's grip by kicking him in his stomach and ran into the kitchen to grab a knife. Danny tried to fight back against him with the knife in her hand, but Michael ended up pimp slapping her like she was a hoe from the streets. Annie tried to crawl away from him, but Michael grabbed her feet and started dragging her on her bare chest while she was crying. Meanwhile, Dr. Loomis and Sheriff Brackett were on their way to the Strode residence. Sheriff Brackett revealed to Dr. Loomis that he responded to a 911 call 17 years ago where he found Deborah's dead body and her infant daughter crying. He didn't write in the report and drove her into another town and dropped her off at the nearest emergency hospital. 3 months afterwards, he found that his friend named Mason Strode adopted her. When Laurie took Lindsay back home, she found Paul's corpse hanging with a pumpkin on his head and found Annie on the floor all cut up and too weak to get up. Laurie told Lindsay to go call the police, and she ran away screaming for help. While Laurie tried to call the police, Michael appeared from behind the door, and Annie tried to warn Laurie about him, but she was too busy talking to the police. Sheriff Brackett responds to the 911 call made by Laurie at the Wallace house and rushed her as fast as he could. Michael appeared from behind and pulled Laurie away from the phone. She sees Michael and quickly escaped by breaking the glass on the back door with a chair. Laurie messed up her ankle while doing so and immediately went back to the Doyle house. Tommy quickly opened the door for Laurie, and Laurie asked him where Lindsay was. Tommy told Laurie that Lindsay was on the stairs. Michael broke through the door, and Laurie told Tommy and Lindsay to go upstairs and hide in the bathroom. While they were hiding, 2 police officers responded to the 911 call that Laurie made, and Michael instantly killed both of them. He broke into the bathroom and kidnapped Laurie. Sheriff Brackett and Dr. Loomis finally arrived at the Wallace house and found Annie injured. Tommy and Lindsay ran to Dr. Loomis and told him that Michael took Laurie. He tells Tommy and Lindsay to wait by the ambulance while he went to look for Laurie and Michael. Laurie woke up in the basement of the Myers house and found Linda's naked dead body and the missing tombstone. She tried to get Linda to wake up, but she was unaware that Linda had been dead for hours. Michael appeared from the darkness and dropped his butcher knife and fell to his knees. Michael showed Laurie a picture of her when she was a baby and himself as a kid, but she doesn't understand the meaning behind it. In his last-ditch effort to make her recognize him, Michael took off his mask and revealed his face to her. Laurie pretends to crawl to Michael and grabbed his butcher knife and stabs him in his shoulder to temporarily knock him unconscious. While Laurie was trying to escape, Michael regained consciousness, took the knife out of his shoulder, and put his mask back on to chase after Laurie. She broke through the fence and crawled through it. Laurie also squeezed through the basement door, and while she wasn't paying the attention, she fell into an empty pool. Michael got out of the basement and sees Laurie in the pool. As Michael was walking towards Laurie to kill her, Dr. Loomis showed up just in time and tried to reason with Michael, but he wasn't trying to hear anything he had to say and tried to kill Laurie. Dr. Loomis shot Michael in his back 3 times and knocked him unconscious. Dr. Loomis took Laurie to Sheriff Brackett's car. Laurie asked Dr. Loomis if Michael was the boogeyman, and Dr. Loomis told her that it was. Out of nowhere, Michael broke the window and pulled Laurie out of the car. He attempted to take her back inside the Myers house and kill her, but Dr. Loomis convinced Michael that it was his fault and that he failed him. In the alternate ending, the police showed up and had Michael completely surrounded while holding Laurie hostage. Dr. Loomis convinced Michael to let Laurie go and dropped his butcher knife. As Dr. Loomis and Laurie were walking away, the police shot and killed Michael. This was originally supposed to be the actual ending, but Rob Zombie ended up changing it to the one that we had in the theater version. In the theater version, Dr. Loomis convinced Michael that it was his fault and that he failed him. Michael let go of Laurie and crushed Dr. Loomis's skull with his bare hands like he's Jason Voorhees. Laurie ran inside the Myers house and hid from Michael. She lost Dr. Loomis's jacket while doing so. Michael dragged Dr. Loomis's body into the house and started looking for Laurie. To find Laurie, Michael started tearing the house apart, and Laurie found Dr. Loomis's gun and grabbed it. Michael sees Laurie and she ran away to go back into hiding. Dr. Loomis, who was barely still alive, grabbed Michael's foot and tried to stop him from going after Laurie, but he didn't have the strength to throw him back. Laurie hid inside the roof and Michael repeatedly pulled through the roof with a random object. Laurie fell through the roof and roughly landed onto the floor. Laurie and Michael see each other face to face. Laurie is completely dazed from the fall and held Michael at gunpoint. He dropped the object and onto the floor and tackled her through the balcony where both of them would roughly land outside on the concrete. Laurie regained consciousness and was completely injured from the massive fall she took. Michael was unconscious next to her and Laurie managed to gain the strength to get on top of Michael, to try and shoot him with the gun, but the chamber was empty when she pulled the trigger once. Laurie repositioned herself and bit in Michael's face. She pulled the trigger twice, but the chamber was still empty. When Laurie was struggling to pull the trigger one final time, Michael grabbed her arm and Laurie finally pulled the trigger and shot Michael in his head. Laurie started screaming as the police sirens got louder. And that's the end of the movie. And now that I did a recap on both the original and the remake, I'm gonna give you my final thoughts on both of them. Starting with the original. Now, I don't really have too much to say about the original, but obviously it's very iconic and influential to this very day, especially the opening, the ending, the characters, the kills, and the music in this movie. It's not my favorite movie in the franchise, but I still enjoy the movie. This movie was made on the 300th $100,000 budget and was released in theaters on October 25th in 1978 and was highly successful at the box office and made $70 million. It received a lot of positive reviews and it was Jamie Lee Curtis's first ever movie. The script for this movie took only 3 weeks to write. Deborah Hill, who was the co-writer for this movie, wrote the dialogue for the female characters while John Carpenter wrote Dr. Loomis speeches on Michael Myers. Most of the actors in this movie wore their own clothes, and Jamie Lee Curtis bought her wardrobe from JCPenney for $100. It took them only 3 weeks to film this movie. John Carpenter did some screen testing for this movie and was told that it wasn't scary. To make it more scary, he created the score for this movie with a piano, and it took him only 3 days to make. This movie was responsible for making the slasher genre the way it is today. It popularized the final girl trope, the use of a theme song for a killer, and the trope where characters that are sexually promiscuous, substance abusers, end up dying. It also became the blueprint for other slasher films in the 80s and the 90s, such as Friday the 13th, The Nightmare on Elm Street, and Scream. This movie also went on to produce a lot of sequels, books, and even a video game. Speaking of video games, there is supposed to be a new Halloween game that's in early development as we speak, and I'm very excited about that, and hopefully it's good. And that's my final thoughts on the original, and now I'm gonna give up my final thoughts on the remake. I think the remake is pretty decent and it's very underrated in my opinion. Michael Myers in this remake was physically more terrifying than the one in the original. I like how they explored Michael's home life, and honestly, even with the childhood that he had, Michael still would have turned out evil because he killed some animals for really no reason at all, and I feel like even if he did get help, he still would have turned out the way he did, because some people are just simply evil and sometimes there's nothing that we can do about it. I also found Laurie, Annie, and Linda in this remake more interesting than the ones in the original because they managed to have more personality and sense of humor while also keeping the spirit of their characters. The kills in this movie are a lot more bloody compared to the original. There's also a lot more kills in this movie compared to the original, where they really only had 6 kills. I think the original and the alternate ending of this movie is pretty good. I also like how this movie managed to capture the 70s vibe of the original while making it feel more modern at the same time. This movie was made on an entire budget of $15 million and was released in theaters on August 31st in 2007 and made $80.4 million at the box office. At the time, the movie got a lot of negative reviews because a lot of people felt like it was inferior to the original. On December 18th in the same year, the movie was released on DVD in the US with both the theater cut and the director's cut. On October 7th of 2008, they released the collector's edition of this movie where it featured a 4-hour documentary on the making of this movie. And now that I've given my final thoughts on the remake, here are some facts that you probably didn't know about this remake. Number 1, Danny Trejo's death scene was originally cut from this movie because the studio had a lot of complaints about it, but Rob Zombie convinced them to put it back because it shows how evil Michael has become over the years. Now, as much as I hate this death scene, that is very true because Michael is a psychopath who has zero value in human life. Number 2, Deborah Myers is the only character in the Halloween franchise to die from suicide. Number 3, this is Danielle Harris's 3rd appearance in the Halloween franchise. She first appeared in the Halloween franchise in the late 80s in Halloween 4 and 5, playing as the orphan daughter of Laurie Strode named Jamie Lloyd. Number 4. Tyra May is the tallest actor to play as Michael Myers. Number 5. Emma Stone auditioned for the role of Laurie Strode. Number 6. This is the first movie where Michael spoke. Number 7. Rob Zombie originally wanted to split this movie into 2 parts, but his idea got rejected. Number 8. Rob Zombie originally wanted Danielle Harris to play as Laurie Strode and Sherry Zombie to play as Linda. I'm glad he didn't go with that idea because I feel like it wouldn't have worked very well. Number 9. Danielle Harris was 29 years old when she was cast as Annie Brackett, and Christina Queeb was 28 years old when she was cast as Linda, which is a parallel to the original where Nancy Loomis was 29 when she played Annie and P.J. Souls was 28 when she played Linda. Number 10. Scout Taylor-Compton was 18 years old when she was cast as Laurie Strode, which is another parallel to the original where Jamie Lee Curtis was 19 years old playing as Laurie Strode. Number 11. Skylar Gisondo, who plays Tommy Doyle, and Dave Farge, who plays Kid Michael Myers, admitted that they had a crush on Scout Taylor-Compton, the main actress who plays Laurie. Number 12. Danielle Panabaker auditioned for the role of Laurie Strode, but she lost the role to Scout Taylor-Compton. Number 13. Rob Zombie casted his wife Sherry Moon Zombie because he wanted a tall actress to play as Michael's mother, so it could explain why Michael grew so tall as he got older. Number 14. Skylar Gisondo auditioned for the role of Kid Michael Myers, but he got the role of Tommy Doyle instead. Number 15. Rob Zombie personally doesn't like horror remakes. Number 16. Scout Taylor-Compton and Danielle Harris became real-life best friends after this movie. Number 17. Dave Farge was so convincing in his role as Kid Michael Myers that many of the crew members didn't want to meet him in real life. When they actually met him, he turned out to be the complete opposite of his character. Number 18. Christina Queeb didn't want to film the nude scene, but she knew it was required for the role. Normally, she didn't have an issue with nudity. The main reason why she didn't want to do it at first was because she knew that there would be screenshots of her naked body posted all over the internet. This was also Christina's first major role in a big movie. Number 19. This was Christina Queeb's first role in a horror movie, and she personally doesn't watch horror movies. Number 20. Christina Queeb said that the most difficult scene for her to film was where Michael killed her character Linda and carried her naked body. The reason why it was difficult for her was because Christina felt embarrassed about the crew seeing her naked in every possible angle. And last but not least, number 21. Scout Taylor-Compton was born the same year that Halloween 5 came out. And that's the end of this video. If you made it this far, be sure to hit that like button, and if you want more videos like this, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notifications so you don't miss out on my next video, where I'll be doing a recap on both the original and the remake of Halloween 2. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.